Hey everyone, how's it going today? So I'm going to be talking about myself in this one. It's not going to be that easy for me as I haven't talked about myself for a very long time. At the same time, my girlfriend here, my roommate, she's going to be in and out here and there, so please don't mind her. And she's making herself breakfast, as you can just hear the toast pop. All right, so I'm here today to share about me because I think there should be some things known about me before we really get even further into this so that you know more about who I am. I grew up like any other person here, except for I do believe that possibly now that where I'm at, I do believe I might have been more conscious than most about myself and this is part of like your genes as well and your hereditary from your blood because my mom was a very observant person since she was a child. She grew up and all she did was observe. And I am very lucky and fortunate to have such an amazing family. At the same time, even though I have such an amazing family, you need to understand it doesn't mean it didn't go without its hardships. I'm not going to share into details what that means because that is private for my family and they do not wish for that stuff to be shared at the moment. And if they do ever, then that's up to them and us. Personally, I would share everything because that's the kind of person I am, but I do have to respect people's privacy. I understand as well as because people's judgment and where humanity is. Some people don't understand the full story and don't know how to forgive and then view somebody as a certain type when it doesn't mean it's true. Thing about my family is we have gotten over a lot of things. Not like it was easy either, but it does take time and communication. So communication is very key. And this is something I've always known and worked on. So growing up, I think like everyone, you try to be normal because that's what life is. You try to be like everybody else. I look at it as us being good children though, good, like our hearts are pure and we wish to make people proud and to do things to help and consider because we are love and we try to love. And that's why when we're kids, so many things become so painful when we don't understand and when adults don't understand themselves and don't help us to understand. And that is where it starts to shape who we become into our adult lives. So, I don't like to think of myself as different, and I never have until as I grew more and more everyone in my life told me how different I was. And when it comes to that, there has to come to a certain point where you need to start accepting or seeing or wondering why people say that. And I didn't accept it right away because I didn't like to think of myself as different. But the more we go, I did become different. But now the more we go, people are becoming different too. So we're all becoming different together, which means that we're not different so much. Point being, though, that I know that I was very self-reflective, observant, and I did a lot of self-talk since I was young. I was always very, the best word I can say is observant. And from there, I would notice patterns and decide what to do with them. Now, does that mean that I was great at it right away? No, it doesn't. It takes time. In truth, I wish you to know that while I believe it has taken past my lifetime here, it's been actually all my past lives and then into this life and then this lifetime to now to bring me here. If the people that don't believe in that, then sure, it's taken me 35 years to get here, and that is from 0 day of birth. Okay, so yes, I'm 35 years old, and this is where I am at the moment. For me, life has been an amazing journey. I have always loved my life, and I have always loved who I am. The difference being that I grew up knowing that a lot of people had a lot of low self-esteem. I knew a lot of people didn't love themselves, and I know a lot of people were insecure, and I know people still are. Now, it's not like I can't help with those things because in truth, even though I loved myself, others people's judgments made it hard for me to accept myself because I was so different. I wasn't able really, I guess in my entire life, to really have super normal conversations. Not just that, even when I was being myself, I used to have such a potty mouth. I had the biggest potty mouth, and I used to spit a lot. There's so many things. My sister and her ex-boyfriend used to tell me that I was rough around the edges, and I didn't even know what that meant. I'm probably still a bit rough around the edges because I'm kind of scrubby, but I think people call it my homeless style. I call it hobo glam, whatever you wish, right? I just like to be comfortable. I like to be comfortable always. And when I say that, it doesn't mean I don't come out of my comfort zones, because if you are to meet anyone that comes out of comfort zones, this gal. And that's how you learn. So let's get into it. How I started was by facing fears. Facing fears is the biggest one. So when I was younger, I would say totally from my preteens into my 19s, and I would say into young 20s, I used to watch like FBI files, murder case files, all those kind of things. I love those things. I used to past this, yes, I have always kind of believed in past lives, and I'll talk about that soon. But basically, I always believed and wondered that possibly in my past life, I was many things. That I could have been a detective, an FBI agent. I could have been the murderer. I could have been many things, because I would think of the scenarios and know how to get around it. Because when I would watch these people get caught, I'm like, well, you left. I don't want to get into those details because that's not the person I am. I'm just trying to tell you where you can go in your mind. And from there, where you decide of who you are and all these kinds of things. And it leads to many answers. But most of us don't even go into those places because we feel like we need to be distracted by the everyday life things, which I completely understand. I need you to know that I lived in that world too. It's not that I didn't. I lived in it really well. I lived in it for 27 years. I started working since I was young. In truth, my parents, they came obviously over from a different country. And when they got here, of course, they started with nothing with their family. I mean, it's bare minimum, right? And you have to work your way up. And my parents are both the oldest childs of their families, and both are still super hard workers. My parents are so driven. I'm very lucky to have the parents that I do. And for me, I believe that that's chosen. I believe that's soul contract. I believe in all of that kind of stuff. So I know that we had chosen to be together in our lives like that. So, sorry, it's just I'm using this new thing and now I'm wondering about the sound, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to work. So with my family, the way we were raised, especially by my mom, she was very strict, but she's so loving. You will meet my mom, because she's going to be all part of this. She's so amazing. You will see she is a strong woman, but it's not like it was easy either. It took a lot to get there. And that's the thing about, we need to realize that it takes a journey to get there. We can't think like, oh, you're so lucky you have that. We don't understand the time that each individual takes in the work that they take, in the things they decide to prioritize, in the highs and lows that they go through, in the insane moments they go through, in all the traumatizing tragedy, all those moments, suffering, whatever, is to get them to where they go. The difference in it is how we choose to react to those things, how we choose to be in those things, how we choose everything. Choice is everything, and I will not be able to stress that enough. I'm going to be saying it all the time, because it truly is free will and choice. Looking at your life and deciding that you have no choice is a choice. Looking at yourself and deciding to do non-action is a choice. Every single minuscule little thing comes down to choice, and I'm sorry, but it's true. Sometimes we like to believe that we don't have the power or the choice, because then it takes all the responsibility out of it. But that is just something that you're selling yourself, because in truth, you're still responsible for that, because you made the choice to not be responsible for your life. When in truth, the moment you come into this world, all of us in that family are responsible for our lives, yourself included. So I'm not trying to say your family is responsible for your life fully, but there's attachments that are part of it that combine to who you are, that makes everything happen into who you are, and then what you are into your adult life and step out into, and how you see things. Now, something I wish to point out for sure is that we need to understand that everyone, there is no one not included in this, has different perspectives about life. Every single person. There is no people in life, no two people that will think of life exactly identically the same. There's not even twins that are exactly identically the same. So there are no life thoughts, paths that are identically exactly the same. And we need to understand that. We need to understand that. We also need to understand that when looking at something, anything, look at something. If you're standing here, anywhere, everyone's going to have a different perspective of what this is. What it looks like from this angle, that angle, this angle, this angle. And it's different everywhere. So someone from this angle might see this and say, this is what you see with that reflective light. But someone from this angle will say, no, you don't see any of that. That doesn't exist here. It's black. But someone from this angle is like, I see white. And someone from this angle is like, where did you see me? There was somewhere where you saw me. Point being that depending where we look, we have a different reality of what we see. So that is life. Okay. Now, am I saying that we can't come to understand each other's points of view? No, not at all. But that takes communication. And then that also takes receiving and understanding, and it goes on and on and on. And this is how we get into life. So being young, how I got here was being observant. The number one thing was I didn't like when people were upset or angry or sad or anything. I always wanted to help people since I was young. Some stories which I normally don't bring up, but my mom talks about often, so I'll just say it here because they brought it to my attention, was when my grandma was losing her teeth, I was willing to give her all my teeth. When my grandpa was losing his hair, I was willing to give him all my hair. And it's when I was tiny. I didn't understand that I couldn't take my teeth out and give it to her. I didn't understand that my grandpa couldn't have my hair. It just made sense that I had so much that I wished to give it because they were sad that they were losing it. And so in this, I feel like that is a pure innocence of all children. I do. And I do believe that what we go through is what leads us to who we are. Not saying that the contracts that we signed as a soul isn't part of that. It fully is. So we signed up for all of this. We did. Now, it was by being observant that I realized that I felt in every situation what could have helped was communication. That what could have helped was if the other person tried to listen. That what could have helped is if the other person tried to learn better how to communicate their side, if they understood what they're going through. At the same time, I understand humans, and at first, especially because of how we are as a society, because we don't know better at the moment, we react in emotion because we don't ourselves understand our emotion. We just, all of a sudden, because we're so busy and distracted, that all of a sudden it's just like something comes at us and it's not what we expect. We're like, why? And we get frustrated and we don't get why. But it's because of everything. It's where you're in that moment that you're so stressed out that you push yourself to this line. I call it when you're on a short fuse, that you push yourself so far that your temperament is just ready to explode. You're ready to explode. You're at this, you're so full, you're ready to explode. And that's why these reactions happen. And we need to understand that most of society is there because they are so worried and stressed about lifestyle and bills and survival and feeding, food. Like, there's just so many things that we believe life is that we distract ourselves with when it's not actually good for us within ourselves. We are so, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use this term because this is how I speak. We are so surface. Surface to me is the surface of us, the human, the shell, what we look like. We don't dive deeper into ourselves. We don't go into the depths of our emotional, our mental, our spiritual, if you're even spiritual, if you even consider yourself. In truth, all of us are. You can't deny it, but you can, but it's there. It is. I mean, people can say they're atheists and all this stuff, and you can, and it's totally fine. That's your perspective. But in truth, where we all come from is the same place. So, getting further into this, I didn't realize that my life would change so drastically, honestly. It's not like I believed in the things of the world that I do at the moment. At the same time, I guess I would always say I was spiritual because in ways I have memories of coming into this life and I know it's spiritual. And I always have been. There was never a moment where I didn't know I didn't have a soul. There was never a moment where I didn't have a connection to my thoughts. There was never a moment where I didn't listen. I mean, when I say didn't listen, it doesn't mean I obeyed and did everything. It was more like I listened and I would test things out. And from the testing things out is where the trust was built between myself and my higher self, and me realizing so many things. And that's where I am today, is I am so in tune and in touch that it's just like bam, 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 just constantly bam, bam, bam. And this is what high vibrating means, okay? But we'll talk about that soon. And another thing I want you to know is you don't need to be like me. There is no need to be like me. You need to understand that you're meant to be you. You came here into this life to be pure and uniquely you. And that's what it's all about. It's about being you, loving you, discovering you, being you again, and it's the constant cycle of loving yourself. I felt a lot of tears there because I know a lot of us don't love ourselves, but it's a journey, okay? Loving yourself is a journey, and it's about you deciding to take that journey if you wish to. Some people might look at this, and I'm going to talk about it all, is because I know when I was young too, sometimes I wish I wasn't myself. Even though I loved myself, I didn't wish to be myself, because where I grew up, where my family ended up moving, it was a very Caucasian town, very much white people. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use white for the people who might think they don't like that term white, because I've had people in my life, but I am going to say that. And I'm sorry for the ones that don't appreciate it. But please know that my intention is not for harm. It's honestly because I wish to talk about how deep this stuff was. So when I first moved to this town, right away was stereotyped as an Asian. Right away, the little kids, because I moved there when I was 10, they right away made me feel like, and it was from what they said, made me feel like I was Asian who was going to be super good at math, and I was going to make the whole class average go down because I'm so brilliant because I'm Asian. And then also because my parents' business that we owned and the way they looked at me. And then it's funny is because one day I learned that I could gift people some of this stuff from our store. And to me, that was such a wonderful thing because I'm a kid, okay? If you can get a free bag of gummies, I think that would be amazing. I was able that one day to give everyone a free bag of gummies, and I thought that was cool. But instead it came back as you're trying to buy everyone's friendship. And it wasn't taken well. And for me, that hurt because my intention was from love. It was honestly not to freaking buy friendship. It was not. I didn't need to hang out with people. It was honestly because the way I looked at it is I have something that I'm able to give, and I, as another person, would be so happy to receive because I wasn't able to afford that, or my parents wouldn't give that to me, you know? So whatever you wish to look at. Point being that obviously it didn't get me any friends. Now, that was the first time in my life in that whole growing up that I experienced a lot of racism. I did, as a child. And people would say, because I was one of the only Asians looking ones there between maybe a couple others, but none were Chinese. Other ones was Japanese, other was Filipino. They were like, it was you, because, and it wasn't me. What I'm talking about was a situation where someone, was driving a car and it was their older brother, and they thought some little Asian was crossing the street bad, and then they told me it was me, but it wasn't me. It just wasn't me. And they were like, it was you, and it wasn't. And there was so many things that were damaging. And for me then, I honestly thought it was because I was Asian. And I honestly just didn't want to be Asian anymore. I wished that I was white. I wish that I was blonde with blue eyes and blonde curly hair. And that's funny, right? Because people with curly hair hate curly hair. And also because it wasn't like it didn't seem like people would like me. And I mean that by like boys. It's not like boys seemed like they would like me or be attracted to me because I was the different one. Now, you need to understand something about my life is I have pretty much spent most of my life as the different one, as the one out there and the awkward one. And I guess I have become very comfortable in that space now where I'm able to talk freely like this. And what's amazing is you don't even understand for how many years in my life people wanted me to keep my mouth shut and not talk. And people won't speak to me. They talk to everyone around me, asking about me, but not actually talking directly to me. You have no idea, okay? I mean by close relations, I mean close friends, I mean all of this, okay? I even had one of my closest families diagnose me as hyper delusional. There's just so many things in this that are so painful and hurtful, and things that I had to come out of, okay? Things that I had to forgive, things I had to realize, forgive others and myself. There was just so much to this. And I don't want you to think that it's an easy path. It's not. And this is exactly why I'm here, because I understand how hard it is. I understand the patterns. I understand. I have been so lucky and fortunate to have the observation skills that I do, to have the attunement that I do to myself, to be able to, it's not like these things came fast. I worked on building these things. And in ways, because I was so excluded in my life from other people because they thought I was so different, it allowed me in those times to decide what I wanted to do with these things. So when I was so hurt, one thing I did notice was, and when I'm hurt, I'm talking about being young. Okay, I'm young. First lesson I taught myself was about boredom. Okay, I recognize that boredom is a choice. People, it's so boring. Oh my God, it's so boring. And you just sit there and like, I'm so bored. And you can honestly sit there and say you're bored for hours. Okay, I know I did. I know I spent days being bored. And to me, it all of a sudden dawned on me that I don't have to sit here and just sit here and be like, I'm bored, oh my God, so boring. I don't have to do that. I can take that time that I'm feeding my brain that I'm bored and choose something else to make it not bored. I can teach myself something. I can learn something. I can do whatever it is in that timing with my mind instead of feeding myself constantly. I'm bored, that's boring. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. How much longer? Oh, time moving so slow. There are so many thoughts that you could replace right there. For me, I started out with just little chatter about like, oh, like, do I like that color? What do I see there? What's in this symbol? Oh, that person. Okay. And it was just all this kind of stuff. And that's what observation is. And that's when you start to notice how many patterns actually happen within these observations that are very similar. And with these patterns, you're able to break down quicker into the core answers. And that's where we go. So basically what I'm saying is, do not have expectations of where you need to be at the moment. Have a goal in mind of where you'd like to go, but don't have expectations of where you need to be, how you need to get there, and what needs to be done. When I say don't have expectations, it doesn't mean don't have a plan. A plan is different than expectations. Expectations leads to stress, frustration, and a lot of upset at yourself. Planning leads to that you have goals in ways and that you take the steps. Now, another thing that we need to learn, and I'm going to be honest about this is one that is hard, but it's when you wish, is patience, okay? You need to understand patience. Patience most especially for yourself, and patience most especially for others, and then trust in divine timing. But we'll talk about that soon. So patience is important is because when we don't give ourselves the time and we don't give others the time, there's a lot of room for upsetness. There's a lot of room for miscommunication. And there's a lot of room for a lot of experiences that most of us don't want to experience, which leads to us avoiding situations because we don't want to deal with them, because we believe that they're going to turn into these things that we don't want to deal with. But what we don't understand is if we ourselves come into the situation differently, the whole formula changes, which means the experience is completely different. But you can't come into the situation and think, okay, I'm going to be different, but hang on to the past because that is still creating the past to happen. It's giving it a window to allow it to happen. But that's up to you because sometimes you need to take the steps and sometimes you need to have the transition. You can't go sometimes people go one extreme to the next before balance, and sometimes people go, transition. I mean, it's all choice. It's how you want to experience. You don't just have to experience like this. You can experience this, like you can experience this, you can experience this, or you can experience this. Like, it's choice. It's freaking choice. All right. Where do we go from here? Back to self. Okay, so I wouldn't say that my journey was easy, and yet I don't look at it as hard. And this is another thing about me is how I talk to myself. So when I don't necessarily think something is hard per se, because I don't like to sell myself as it's hard, I can't do it. I look at it more as like, okay, this can be a challenge, but I am able to accomplish this, and in whatever way I do. And I'm very gentle. And I do believe we need to be more gentle on ourselves. Okay, sorry, one sec. I have to reply to this text for a job. Love you all.